Let's move local for our last topic of the day, and we'll wrap it up. This has gone on a little bit, and we got to do it under in 20 minutes. I see the Mayor Lumumba, has been on the national shows talking about race issues and COVID issues. Should the mayor be discussing these issues when the murder rate's about to set a new record? Stephen, I'll let you go first.
Yeah, I mean, I guess should he be talking about those issues?
Should he mention that we're going to set a new murder rate in Jackson, Mississippi?
Yeah, I mean, obviously racial issues, I mean, that's at the forefront of everything right now,
And he's not being invited on these shows to talk about that.
Right, and so Jackson has had issues with crime for years, and so setting a record, for homicides or whatever, if we're on pace to do that, I mean, that is that's saying something.
That's
for us
hitting a new low.
Yeah, for us to hit a record even there, but I just don't know. I don't mind him doing these public appearances to talk about this issue that is just at the forefront of everybody's thoughts right now. The racial issues, the question, policing and whether reforms of policing and the rest that's being discussed. But to me though, they're not unrelated because crime rates and policing and all those things, they go hand in hand, right? I mean, when you have effective law enforcement, there's less crime.
I would say they're unrelated because JPD is majority African American now. And you're talking about racial profiling and racial civil rights abuse.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with that too. That when you hear discussing things like systemic or institutionalized racism in certain areas, I mean, that's a question I have personally. Does that include JPD or Hinds County?
No, I mean when you're talking about poverty,
it seems like those systems
be the murder rate, and here's why. I think every citizen has the right to be peaceful in their home and not have a problem living in your home, having stray bullets going through your home, killing their children.
Yeah.
Going outside and enjoying life, but being too scared to do it, something needs to be done on that. Now, I'm very critical of this mayor. I don't think he has done what I would have done if I were mayor. But
you running?
No, I'm not running. But it's a real problem. And if I were the governor, like we've
mayor
said
or
before,
governor?
Now, if I were the governor, I understand that everyone has a right to having that kind of safety in their home. I'd send out the National Guard tomorrow.
In Jackson?
Absolutely would. I'd send the National Guard in Jackson.
Martial
right
law. Statistically, based on 1918, because I'm a big analysis guy, that it's going to spike in October, and because of flu season and kids being indoors and not being able to go outside.
Yeah.
And I do believe scientific data is undisputed that the sunlight destroys it. So when you start losing sunlight, and I just believe, this year's flu with COVID is going to be worse because we really didn't have that last year.
Yeah.
We had some of the flu, and this came in February or March, but it's really hit. But I mean,
there's going to be a COVID season every year now to go along with cold and flu season.
It's not going away.
But we're going to have a vaccine probably in about 9 more months, maybe a year.
You think a vaccine solves the problem?
No, sir, sunshine. Vaccines do not cure things. They prevent things, but just like every issue. Well, I've heard this in debate. If this was the first time we really experienced swine flu, the first year is going to be the roughest.
Yeah, that's
and
right.
then we learn and educate and overcome. And then also, I hate to say it, there's some of us walking around that just don't have the natural defenses.
Yeah.
And it could be me. It could be one of y'all. And then when we get it, those are people you hear about, like, he died in 2 days.
Yeah.
And, there is going to be some herd immunity. So, it's going to be 2 years is when they got over the pandemic in 1918. Of course, they didn't have the internet. They didn't have technologies.
Yeah.
They didn't have a global, joint effort.
How many people died? Like 40 million or 100 million people died?
Worldwide.
Of course, that was World War I also. Yeah. So I don't. It was some unbelievable number.
I think you're.
I think it was 100 million.
There was a great book on the 1918 flu too by the guy who wrote Rising Tide. What's his name?
50 million deaths.
John. Oh yeah, I think his name John Barry or somebody Barry. He wrote this awesome book about the 27 flood called Rising Tide. Must read if you're listening to this. He also wrote a book on that 1918 Spanish flu pandemic, and so I actually got that, and started it. But he's a great writer, and but yeah, I'd be curious to see because I mean that's the big question. Second wave, is it going to hit? How big is it going to be?